So one of the books, well, really series that I don't just like really enjoy it, but I've thought about it consistently over the years. There's about four of these books and series is that have stayed on my mind over the years, and I think about so a lot of Isaac Asimov, Dune, the Belgariad, but also the Hunger Games. And I know that sounds weird, and I'm going to explain. So the thing about the Hunger Games is Suzanne Collins really nailed the interiority of how a particular kind of like trauma experience, particularly for people in it's like social societal abuse. It's dystopian, young adult fiction. Um, And so Katniss really resonated for me because of the way that character expresses like the stress and like what they're thinking of and their survival orientation, the hyper vigilance, the not trusting anybody, the not realizing she likes people that she actually cares about. Because if she allows herself to realize that she cares about them, then that changes something on the inside that she's not prepared to deal with. So there's sort of like all of that happening. But Suzanne Collins did something just absolutely remarkable that is standing for me the test of time. And what she did was she told the truth, like about society from a meta perspective. The story is that she was flipping between, I want to say it was like the Met Gala and then coverage of probably Desert Storm or something, but one of America's military interventions in the Middle East. And that contrast is what led her to write the Hunger Games series. But she did more than that. So there's this character Finnick I think about quite a bit. And Finnick is a character who is presented as a very good-looking, wealthy, celebrated hero of the capital. When he shows up, he's kind of, I guess, cocky with Katniss, or kind of like violates our boundaries a little bit. And kind of shows that he knows more than she does. Um, he's not innocent, he knows. And there's even that line where he talks about like, I haven't dealt in anything as common as, I don't know, jewels or money in years. I deal in secrets. And so Katniss does not like him fairly, I think. She's not a fan. Um, and doesn't trust him. And we don't find out until like book, what is it? It's like Mockingjay, that he was prostituted out by President Snow, and not just him, pretty much all of the victors in the Hunger Games series. That basically anybody that was being put forward as a hero, heroine, celebrity, well-known, blah, 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 somebody, that they were being leveraged. And I don't even know that I like the term prostituted, because I don't think that really captures the gravity of the violence that creates. Um, when you think of it as like, it's just a pimp pimping out, it's just being a player. Oh, it's just a freak off, or oh, this and that. We allied the truth of what's happening, and that is that someone is being, trafficked. They're in sexual slavery. They are being controlled by another person, and also to participate in their own degradation. Um, and so Katniss doesn't discover this. We don't discover this, I think, until very close to the end of the core series. And the reason why I think about that quite a bit is because I'm have noticed over the years that this seems to be an enduring experience for celebrities, but I don't think that it was really confirmed for me personally until we saw what was happening with like Justin Bieber and Diddy, P Puff, whatever, Sean Combs. and just the absolute network and web. And then, sort of looking back on things that over time kind of added up. So, like, for example, when I was a kid, I remember like Aaliyah and R. Kelly being together. And it didn't dawn on me that that was weird. And I sat there and I was like, wait a minute, how old was she? How old was she when they got married or got together? Hold on, Aaliyah and R. Kelly. I remember looking it up and being shocked. Ages. Okay. She meets him when she's 12 and he's 24. And then they get married when she was 15 and R. Kelly was 27. And that was in 1994. So what was I, like 12? So to me, it didn't ping to me as being weird because I don't know, she was older than me. And everyone who, when you're a kid, everyone who's older than you is like an adult. So it didn't, but I remember like sitting in a lobby somewhere one day and I thought, wait a minute, how old was she? What's going on there? So as we've kind of seen the unveiling of the Epstein files, and we've seen sort of the unraveling of like Sean Combs, what he was doing to people. And it reminds me of this book that came out when I was younger, and there were rumors about it. And there's always weird rumors that cannot possibly be true that somehow travel the, earth even before the internet. Richard Gere had one and it was like, how do we all have the same stupid rumor? Like, what? So not every rumor is true, but there was a book that came out that was this like coffee table art book. And the rumor was that it was advertising the people in the book. And the reason I remember is because Hayden Panettiere was in that book. And so I always sort of just lightly kept an eye on her, like how she was doing in life, because she went from someone with so much light in her eyes to someone who's not. And it made me wonder, like, was that rumor? Then there were the rumors about the yacht parties. These young attractive people, they go to these yacht parties and where all the wealthy people collect, and then and things occur. And there were some stories coming out of these yacht parties that were basically like, you're on a yacht, you think you're there to just have a good time, and then it turns out you're not, and you're in the middle of the ocean and you realize, oh no, I am in trouble. And one of the commenters made a remark about how, well, that's why these rich people love these yachts, because you can be out of the laws of a country. You can be in open waters where the laws are different. That is, by the way, one reason why the Scientology guy had his Sea Org. It was to be on open waters outside of the reach of the laws of any particular country. It also reminded me of the influencers that we had. I want to say it was like the 2010s, maybe. There were all these influencers going to Dubai and they were, taking pictures of like these private planes and all this stuff. But the rumors were that they were getting paid and they were getting sexually trafficked, and that even people who thought, oh, I know what I'm agreeing to, ended up being so harmed that they were physically, like, their lives ended up being at risk, like, and they were physically harmed and damaged. One of the rumors that was coming out was about how these very wealthy people were importing like American influencers to debase and degrade them, and then throw them away when they were done. It wasn't just about sex. It was about taking out some very ugly things on someone you don't care about or respect. And on a side note, I don't think a lot of Americans realize the impact porn has had on the way some countries view Americans, and that that's why sometimes certain things happen, because they're consuming porn made in a lot of the world's porn is made in America. And so they're consuming this porn and they think, "Oh, that's what kind of people they are. So this is a person I have permission to treat this way. They're all like this or whatever." And I'm not saying like all people, but when I've read stories from perpetrators, that's kind of like often the thought process that they have. So one of the incidences got so bad, allegedly, that they made Dubai chocolate a thing to drown out search results for some very harmful things that had occurred to victims. There's also, speaking of rumors, I'm just going on a rumor train today. Rumors about Wayfair, and now this new one, Vintner. Rumors that they are actually trafficking, and that if you go look up a certain search term, that you can find something and it's like by kids' names. And I did actually go look that up and I was like, oh, that's unnerving because it's on there. It's on the website. You think they would put that in a separate section with a passcode? And I was like, surely it couldn't be this blatant. But nothing's happened. So, allegedly. And then someone had pointed out art that had been sold at Sotheby's by this particular artist and how it was actually a way of trafficking, again, children. And so I went to the website, I looked up the particular artist and their art, and I was like, because you don't even have to, even the art itself was disturbing, sexualizing, and included people it shouldn't include. It looks dark. So anyway, as like looking back on all these rumors that I've heard whispers over the years, but then we got the release of the Epstein files. We had Trump himself talking about how he loves to, he bought the teen pageant and that he can just go back there and just see the teenagers, grab them by the what. People just let you do it because you're, and also the stuff that happened like with Usher. I mean, not Usher. Well, Diddy, Usher, Bieber, that whole everything that Diddy went to jail for. And it makes me think of Finnick, about how people are pushed into the limelight and it seems like they have everything, and that they are celebrated and celebrities. And it turns out that Suzanne Collins was very right, allegedly. I gotta admit, I'm about to embarrass myself on the internet. I thought that I grew up from before the internet to now with the internet, and I really thought that, with more information, that things would be better and that we could stop bad things from happening. And it just seems like you're playing whack-a-mole. There's one thing and you whack it and then it just pops up 5 other places. And then you try to whack that and then it pops up 5 other places. These people that are doing this have been doing it. It's that line of like, there's nothing new under the sun. I must have grown up in a very bucolic time, or I wasn't aware. The major sex scandal from when I was a kid was the whole Bill Clinton thing. And I mean, we vilified Monica Lewinsky. So as a society, we've come a long way because now we look back and we go, oh, he was in a position of power and authority that he misused over this young woman. But at the time, she was absolutely vilified. But for the most part, when you're a kid, you don't really know about that stuff. So you see NBA players or you see actors and actresses and you think, "Oh, that's who I want to be like." And they have money and they have they have everything they want in this world and they're doing this thing that I love and really it's the systems around them that are harvesting from that person. I don't want to say harvesting, but they're using that person. They put them forward for their skills, abilities, capacities, gifts, beauty, whatever, handsomeness. They put them for they've put them forward with the fame, with some money, but it's the people behind who make the money, you know? So young kids are looking at NBA players like, oh, this person makes so much money. Well, who's making the most money? But now I'm an adult and I'm like, oh, it's the contractors who get the taxpayer money to build stadiums that the government's convinced, their constituents needed to be built. It's the owners of the teams, it's the media, blah, blah, blah. It's the merchandising, it's this and that. It's the whole system behind. They put the players forward. So you think they're the center. And in Hollywood, it's producers, it's people behind the scenes. It's the whole framework that puts these people forward. Um, Same thing for the music industry. And it again makes me think of Finnick. How many of these people that we're seeing that we've looked at with admiration, how many of them have been put in positions where they're like, oh, I'm in the middle of the ocean. No one can come rescue me. I'm in trouble. Then what did they choose possibly to do? Do you really have a choice? Like if you're Finnick and your entire family is going to be murdered by President Snow, is that a real choice? It's not. This is why coercive systems of control are as equally damaging as the actual violence. So when you're in an abuse dynamic and you are being coerced into doing something you wouldn't choose to something that is destructive to yourself, degrading yourself, humiliating yourself, and the abuser is benefiting from it or enjoying it for some reason, and then victims sit here and struggle with, I did this. They feel the weight of guilt and shame for the actions that other people took. One of the abusers that I was with, so it's my abusive ex, not my child's father, he basically said, I need to know that you would like scream and fight and, you know, that you would do everything possible to like get away from somebody. And I was like, what planet do you live on? You're a guy. If you're a child or a woman, this was the same guy who physically put his hands on me that I thought that I was at least as strong as, and it turned out I was very incorrect. It doesn't have to be that you are screaming and fighting and yelling. Sometimes you've been maneuvered into thinking that it's a choice that you made. And that's not true. Finnick didn't choose it, nor do victims of abuse. Anyway, I hope this makes sense. I'm sorry, it's another long one. And I'll talk to you next time.